Well, hello. My name is Alanda, and this is me, unscripted, just me talking to you. So, if you are looking for a content creator, you know that everything in their life is aesthetically pleasing, long flowing hair, and everything is absolutely perfect, that's not me. There's not going to be a lot of jump cuts, nothing fancy, because I'm not fancy. So, if you need all the fancy stuff, then please, by all means, go find another content creator who can fulfill that for you. You can just, you know, go. But if you just are looking for someone to talk to you and be real about what their opinion is, then stick around. So today's video is going to be, I don't know if I'd call it a reaction or a response to another creator's video, but I guess it's kind of that. A video came into my bubble because you know how YouTube likes to recommend things. Oh, and by the way, we just moved on this next Wednesday. It will be 2 weeks since our furniture and everything has been in here. So things are still topsy-turvy. I did get this room divider because where my space is now for the studio, it's kind of in the middle of the living room, but it's like a little nook area. So I had to find something to divide space because I don't have a door to like shut myself off. So that's why everything you see, my yoga mats, I mean, things are just a bit out of sorts, still working on it. It's not been 2 weeks. So, give me a break. If you want to drag me for that, then, go right on ahead. Anywho, so this content creator, which this is not meant to send him any hate or to shade him in any way. So if you take it like that, that's on you. That's not my intent. I'm kind of looking at this as a teachable moment, so to speak. So anyway, his name is Skelotim, and he did a video called um, Mac Cosmetics fires all full-time employees. So this is basically, what I have to say about that. And I'm not going to say the fact that that happened isn't sad. It is. I mean, absolutely, it is sad. But the thing is that since we are all facing the same issue worldwide, we've all had to make changes. I mean, we're making behavioral changes, we're making spending changes. Our daily lives have been disrupted. Businesses, their lives have been disrupted. Businesses are trying to figure out, what do we do? Have you been to Starbucks, by the way? Because, it was months before I went out, and I went to Starbucks recently, and they figured it out how to do this, contactless, get you your coffee and everything, which I think is just brilliant. But did they come up with that right away? No. Businesses and people were all having to make adjustments. That's just what we have to do, and to survive, because we're all looking to survive. Humans are looking to survive, like individuals and families and all that. Businesses are looking to survive as well. There have been local businesses here in Houston that have closed. There have been a lot of things that have not been able to sustain even for now, and I understand that, and it's terrible, and it's horrible, and it's sad, all of those things. But there's nothing we can do about that other than kind of move forward, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. So yes, let's see. All right. So I wanted to talk about this. My husband, if you're new, if you do not follow me over on my primary channel, which is the Recovering Hunbot, I do anti-MLM videos over there. You probably don't know this, but anyway, my husband is a wine guy. He's a sommelier, and he works at a high-end restaurant. So when all of this stuff first went down, nobody was really working except the full-time people. But guess what? And they were salaried. They weren't getting their full salary. They were getting half their salary because the restaurant was trying to figure out, how do they survive. Now, fortunately, this restaurant owns the building they're in, so they don't have to worry about rent or anything. But still, it's not like they had the people coming in where, that's bringing in money. They were trying to figure out what to do. If you hear any little clicking sound, that's going to be chalupa or tamale. We have wood floors, and the dogs are behind me, and that's just how life is. Anywho, so they started out doing just half salary, and then they started doing wine sales, being able to, because if they had like a lot of different bottles of the same wine, usually maybe like they usually do for parties and stuff, they started being able to like sell some wine and things, because it was like, what can we do? What can we do to bring in money? They were adjusting. People were figuring it out. Everybody is still figuring out. Good gravy. I already talked about Starbucks. malls and strip centers. I mean, I just can't see how any of that is going to survive, honestly. And when you think about it, Mac, at least in my experience, because I really don't do malls all that often. Last time I've been in a mall was in like 2015, and that's only because of where I worked was attached to the Galleria, but that's a story for a different day. Anyway, like the Mac that I used to go to, which I've never really been able to use Mac because their foundations for my skin tone, at least the last time that I went, because I have a very cool skin tone and their stuff is very warm. Everybody always talks about, shade differentiation and going into the darker shades, but I'm going to tell you something. As someone who is very fair, it's very hard to find a foundation that works for my skin tone because many are much more golden, and I'm not that, and I look sick if I tried to wear that. Anyway, that's again another story for another day. So anyway, I don't see how these retailers in malls, in strip centers, how they're going to be able to survive. Now, granted, I have not been out like clothes shopping or into a Marshalls. Are those even open? Are people going to those? Because I honestly don't know. Because I just try to hunker down, and it was not my idea for us to move. Our building sold, and we had to move because somebody, I'm just saying, Karen bought the building and had to renovate so that she could move in. But that's her prerogative. She doesn't have to worry about people like us, her renters, of whether or not we had jobs, if we were working, or what was going on. People don't have to really be all that concerned with that. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be. Sorry about that, frog in the throat. But what I'm saying is that, when you run a business, you are thinking about the business because you're thinking about how do you keep bringing in money, because at the beginning of the year, you run the numbers, you go to the board, you let them know what the projections are. And so you're trying to, make a profit. And so now companies are going, what the heck do we do? Because we've got this thing going on and people aren't coming in. So we've got to retool. As a matter of fact, the company I work for, all these like extra like perks that we got, which was like matching 401k and some other stuff, that the kibosh, total kibosh on all that. They brought it back now, but the kibosh was put on that because everything was so unsure. So you see, there's a lot of uncertainty. And so when I saw him do this video, and now I'm not saying that all of these people that work for Mac that are full-time, that them losing their job, that they deserve it or anything like that. Not at all. I understand it's sad. I understand it's horrible. And I'm going to share with you some things that I've went through just to illustrate the point that this isn't the first time this has happened. It's not going to be the last time. It happens to be happening right now during this pandemic thing. Lots of change is happening right now because we have to adjust. We have to figure out, how do we get through this, the most unscathed we possibly can go through. You know what I mean? It's like, 'cause you're not looking to just, I don't see there being like mass homelessness and stuff like that and people just dying in the middle of the street. I just really don't see that happening. I mean, I've watched a lot of like post-apocalyptic things, so my mind goes to these places. But honestly, it's like I don't see that happening because we can band together and figure out what can we do so that we can survive. Are people dying? Yes, they are. And is this a real thing? Yes, it is. Please wear your mask. Please social distance, all that stuff. Anywho, okay. Enough rambling on about that. So now I wanted to talk about some things that I've personally been through because this is my take. When I watched his video, and I think he's like maybe in his late 20s, early 30s, I honestly don't know. And I'm considerably older than that. I could be his mama, basically. Anywho, I kind of think of it that you're coming from a place where you don't have as much experience in the world as like someone like, who's older like myself and other people. And maybe you haven't been through instances where you have, lost your job because there's been a change in business. I don't know. Maybe it's just because they're upset that because of what's going on in the world and they feel like, well, companies should stand behind their people, but companies don't owe you anything. That's the bottom line. They don't. They owe you nothing. You enter into an agreement that you will work for someone for a particular amount of money, be it hourly, be it salary, be it if you're an independent contractor. You are making that agreement. You don't have to be kept there. They don't have to keep you. They can get rid of you, and they do. This happens all the time. Pandemic, or no pandemic. And so the instances obviously that I'm going to give you are, before a pandemic, but it's to illustrate that I really felt like this was very privileged sounding, like, and I get it because it does sound like, corporate greed. I do get that. But also I do know businesses are just trying to sustain and to hang on. I know where my husband works, they're doing things just to, try to keep it together and keep people coming in the doors, because now people can go into restaurants and stuff, even though I don't really think you should, just do takeout or something. Anyway, okay, so all right. Okay, this one. I was an undergrad and I was a server at a restaurant. And I can remember the day that I went to that restaurant ready to work my lunch shift after class, because I always worked lunch and I worked dinners because I would take early morning classes and evening classes. So if I worked dinner, obviously I wasn't in class either, but I was working it out that way. And the restaurant was just closed. There was no warning, no nothing. And that's how I made my money. That's how I paid my rent. That's how I did everything. Was I was a server putting myself through school. Boom, just gone. Nothing. Had no idea. And now you're out of work. So there's one example. And there's so many others that I can give you. Okay, another one. All right. So I'm a former classroom teacher. And I remember my very first job as an instructional designer. Instructional design is when you design and develop training. And I've been doing that for many, many years. So if you've ever had to go to like corporate training, whether it is face-to-face or it's online, there's someone who puts that together. That's what I do, basically. I'm not doing that right now. I manage something else, but that's, again, another story for another day. I have so many stories. Have you noticed a trend here? I'm just, the story person, I guess. Anyway, so when I got that job, there had been a merger and I worked at a call center for a bank. And so there was some real tension between the company that like took over the other bank. And usually what happens in that case is that there's like the winning side and the losing side in terms of, who worked for who, because usually there are people who will be laid off. And I can remember seeing, like how much tension there was and feeling that. And it was a thing. And I was really glad that I was not part of that merger. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never want to go through that. Little did I know what life had in store for me. Okay, so when I was working for that company, I can remember being targeted by my manager. I was put on a growth plan. A growth plan means like they're just looking to document stuff so that they can get rid of you. And so I went to work for another company and I took a lower salary because I was looking to survive. I was adjusting so that I could survive because I couldn't just be without a job. But at the same time, I didn't want to hang on there where I was being treated like crap, because literally stuff with my projects would happen, because every single project, when you create training, it's something always goes sideways. That's just how it is. It could happen to me. There'd be a big hubbub about it. It would happen to someone else. No big deal. It was really super uncomfortable. So the next company I went to did training for the Army, but they were a subcontractor from the prime contractor. You follow that? And I remember one day we come to work. We were paid every single week, which was really kind of weird, but you get used to it. You adjust to it, right? And we were told that we weren't going to be paid. And we all had bills and everything because we had a job. We had the expectation we'd be paid for our time, but we weren't. The following week, the prime contractor came in, and I remember they were having meetings with all these different people. And then after all of that, there was a meeting with a bunch of people. I was in that. Well, we were the people that were kept. Everybody else that they had had meetings with were laid off because they were looking to kind of slim things down. And I remember, gosh, I keep saying that a lot. I apologize, but this is just Alanda going down memory lane of stuff that has happened, and my bra is twisted. Oh, well. Anyway, I thought, wow, something is going on. And I really felt, and I was right too, that they must be wanting the contracts we're working on, the instruction that we're all putting together, for that to be created so they can get rid of us. Because there's no way a company that was based in Florida was going to keep some little office that was in Houston. There was just no way that was going to happen. And they didn't. Now, because I, sniffed around, I was like, something smells like I'm going to lose my job. I started looking for something else, and I found a different position. And then I'm going to kind of fast forward a bit. Let's see. Okay, so the last really great. Well, I guess, when I finally started working for this very large oil and gas company, all kinds of things happened in between. I was making bank, really great money. And I felt like I had arrived. It was like, well, it's about time that I'm being rewarded for all of the time that I've been in this industry, for my education, for my experience, much like the people at Mac, because at Mac, you can, it's like, there's not a cap on how much you can earn. So every year you can get a raise, and it could be like 50 cents. I think he said on upwards of like $2 an hour, over time, you can see how people could be making some really good money. And so right now with what's going on, you could see why companies might be going, we need to, find a way to cut back some. Well, same situation that I ran into. So while I was working for this big, huge company making a ton of money, and for the first time in my life, I thought, oh my gosh, I can finally kind of, have a life where I don't have to worry about money and feel like, oh my gosh, like make sure just like watch every nickel and dime. I was kind of, a lot freer with it, and it felt good because I felt like, wow, you know, it's about time. I've arrived. It just goes back to I felt like I've arrived. Well, that's the same year that I got cancer. I had breast cancer, and I went through all of that, and that's yet another story of how I was treated, which was absolutely horribly. Uh, so horrible. And that really did taint me how I was treated dealing with cancer. But the day that I went back to be full time and not have to go get radiation or anything is the day I was laid off, myself and like about 80% of the training department. Now, what had happened, there'd been another merger. Remember that first merger I told you about? The company I worked for, we had, taken over another company, which usually the company that takes over, you have the upper hand. That was not the case in this. It was like the training department of the company that we merged with, they kind of like rose up, which was very, very weird. And there was restructuring, and that's exactly what companies are doing right now. And that's probably what Mac is doing right now is they're restructuring in some way, because although they fired their full-time employees, they're letting them come back, but at a reduced wage. So you're going to have to go back to like an entry wage, I guess. And I don't know how much that is. I don't know how much of a difference it is. But I do know myself, I've been through a number of instances where sometimes you have to go backwards, and going backwards sucks. I did that recently with the job that I have right now, where, I work from home before COVID and everything. What I make annually is nowhere near, not even in the same ballpark as what I had been making before. But I had to adjust. We had to figure out, what are we going to do as a family, my husband and myself, because obviously I need to be bringing in money. And it's how I was treated while I went through cancer and then laid off and all of that. That's what attracted me to multi-level marketing. Don't do that. And I do get concerned that people who are going through these different things, because there's been this uptick of people joining multi-level marketing companies, that people who work for Mac, they might go like, oh, maybe I can make some, side money and make up the money if I shill Unique, or if I shill mascara, or if I shill Sweet Minerals, or Lime Life, or Alouette, any of these other different brands that have, multi-level marketing makeup. They might join that, because there's been this huge uptick of people joining. Please don't do that. I mean, if you want to find out more about why you shouldn't join multi-level marketing, do go check out my other channel, which is the Recovering Hunbot. Anyway, I really feared that, because I can understand that when I lost my job and everything, like I said, that kind of pushed me into multi-level marketing, not right away. But I felt like, wow, there's no loyalty. There's no nothing. I had worked my butt off for years, just like these people who have worked for Mac for many years and worked their way up to make a certain amount of money. And now you're smacked in the face with the fact that you're not going to get what you thought you were promised. But it goes back to, companies don't owe you anything. Just because you work for a company doesn't mean that they have to keep on giving you more money, or that they have to keep you on. When this happened to me, something that I wanted to do was go back to classroom teaching. So I cannot even tell you how many districts in the Houston area that I applied to. I mean, like every single district, and districts that are like way out in the burbs, because I was looking for something to do, and I'd go to these job fairs and everything. And I think I got maybe 2, maybe 3 interviews, if that, and then never called back. And here's the thing. Schools didn't want to hire you if you had experience, because then they'd have to pay you more. They were looking to hire the younger people without the experience that they could pay less. And I think it's kind of the same thing with Mac. And I can totally understand if you work for a company and you see somebody younger coming up behind you, and they're getting accolades or whatever, and they're making less and you're training them, there's going to be some animosity in that. That's the way of the world. That's just how things go. And as you get older, and like I said, I think he's in his late 20s, early 30s, something like that, probably hasn't seen a lot of this. And when you haven't been through a lot of it, you may not be able to wrap your head around the fact that companies don't owe you anything, and it's up to you to figure out how to adjust and figure things out on your own. Just like companies are trying to figure things out right now, we as individuals, as human beings, we got to figure out, what do we have to do a bit differently. Maybe we have to give up some things that we enjoyed. Maybe we're not going to be able to buy all the shoes because we just love shoes, and we're not going to be able to do that right now because there's been a change. And when there's a change, the only thing you can do is survive. And sometimes that survival means you gotta adjust, and you gotta suck it up, buttercup, and deal with some things that you didn't think you'd ever have to. So all of that, I feel bad for those that work for Mac, but at the same time, it's not an unusual thing. This is not the first time something like this will happen, nor will it be the last time. And definitely, this is not going to be the first nor the last time within a pandemic. We don't know what the future holds. So all we can do is just kind of keep trying to adjust, trying to hang on. And if you have an opportunity to go back and work for the company, for Mac at this, example, and you choose to go back and work for them for a lesser amount, know that you can keep looking for something else. You're not married to them. You don't have to stay there, but they don't have to keep you either. They don't owe that to you. Nobody owes you anything. There's no such thing as that free lunch. Figure out something else to do on your side hustle. Don't join MLM. If you have some sort of a talent, create an Etsy shop or something. If you love animals, walk dogs on the side. Figure out some other things that you can do to possibly, generate a little bit more income yourself. And also figure out some things that maybe you don't need all the streaming services that you have right now. Maybe there's other things. Maybe you can have a roommate, even though you don't really want a roommate. Maybe you can adjust in some way. There's things that you probably can do to just change up your life a little bit so that you can deal with the fact that you're not making the amount of money that you once were. I mean, like I said, I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, rode the pony, all of that stuff. It happens. It happens probably to just about everyone. And if you haven't been through it before, consider yourself lucky, but do be aware that, you know what? You're not infallible. It could very easily happen to you too. All right, that's all I have with all of this today. I hope you did enjoy this, that you did learn something from it. And again, this is not meant to throw any shade or anything or send hate. So please don't do the hate on Skelotim. Please don't send him hate or anything, because it's not intended for that. This is a teachable moment in terms of what's going on in the world, and and I haven't even I haven't even shared with you all of my examples. There's so many other things that I've been through, and maybe other times I will talk about that, but you've just got to find a way. That's the only thing, is find your own way. And it's going to feel crappy. Honestly, it's going to feel crappy. I'm not going to say that it's not, because I can remember, how angry I was when, this really great paying job, all of a sudden it was just gone in an instant. It feels like crap. It felt like crap that I couldn't get a teaching job, even though I had 7 years of classroom teaching under my belt, but nobody wanted to hire me because they didn't want to pay me. It's just, You just sometimes, you got to figure out how you can find something and settle in and just write it out, because you never know what can happen and make things change. People go backwards all the time. So adjust. Anyway, I will see you next time. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day. Be safe, and I'll see you next time.